Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few podcast, the Rangers podcast delivered to you, the fans. My name is Graeme Curry. I'll be the host today, and I'm joined by three other teddy bears. We've got Steve, David, and Chris. Steve, how are you going?
Not too bad, thanks, mate. Thanks for having us back on after my debut last week. So maybe didn't stink quite as much as I thought.
Solid performance. We all enjoyed it, so you're all invited back. David, how are you doing, pal?
I'm well. So good evening to all my Rangers brothers. Good that we're getting close to the kick-off again, Aberdeen and Tuesday. So, yeah, get the phony war over with and get the game on, as they say.
Fair enough. Chris, you getting excited as well?
Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to getting back to the football. Travelling up to Aberdeen on Tuesday, so looking forward to getting up there and supporting the team.
A long break with it, and it's you just especially the winter period where we're talking before, and it's a traditional time to be going to the football. It's like when you want to go, and you've got a wee bit of time off work usually, so it's been a bit of a killer not being able to do it. It's been postponed like this, but we're nearly there. So today's been a bit of a whirlwind at Glasgow Rangers. We've had a few announcements being made today. It's been quite a busy window in general. I think we've got a good bit of business getting done. As far as I can see, we're doing it all well. Kicking off with Nathan Patterson leaving for a fair bit of money. Steve, what was your thoughts on Nathan leaving?
I had quite a good kind of saying it last week. It just broke before the podcast, but I'll just kind of reiterate what I said last week. I mean, I think it was just a great deal for everybody. You know, the club got a lot of money. He's obviously got to be superb money himself. And he's probably getting to the stage where he's kind of want to play games. And I just think he's in one of the two or three positions, at Rangers where the guy that he's behind, you know, like sort of Morelos, Taff, whatever, they don't get injured. So the chances for them were few and far between. So I just thought his message when he left was class, and I think I'd like to see him back at some point. But I just wish him all the best, really.
It will be a miss. He was going to have a promising future with us. I was kind of hoping he would stay, but with the money that's coming in, you can't knock that sort of money back, I don't think. And no, you're not going to displace the captain. So I think probably the right decision from all parties.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only bit of transfer news. We've also had an introduction. James Sands has come in. He's come in from New York City. David, do you follow the American football?
To be honest, I'm blissfully unaware of James Sands until obviously the news came through that he was on an 18-month loan with an option to buy. But clearly, the boy's rated, you know, so obviously there's the connection with the City group there, so they knew of him. I don't think there should be much at stake with this guy. I mean, he's clearly a decent player. He's a young talent, international caps, league winner. You know, what's not to like? You know, 18 months. You know, so we've got no doubt there'll be some sort of loan fee involved, but we'll get a good look at him over the 18 months, because 18 months is quite a long time for anyone to be on loan. But obviously, had it not been that, it may have been only 6 months, which may not have been enough. So, no, I'm absolutely delighted because the boy seems to be a utility. You know, he'll central defence, he'll mostly midfielder, which I think is his prime slot, but he also provides us with cover at right back. So, gosh, what's not to like? Smashing.
I think it is that link between the City group. That's where we've got that connection from, and that scouting's probably network. So I'm looking forward to seeing this boy. He can only be a great player if he's playing with the national team at that age. He must be a player. So I've not seen him in person. Seen the obligatory YouTube clips, but looking forward to seeing him with a blue strip on. Chris, do you think he'll come into the team immediately, or do you think there'll be a bit of bedding in period for him?
I think it's obviously we'll see under Gio how that plays out, but as we saw under Gerrard, he liked to kind of play the players, these new players in sort of gradually at different points, unless they were coming in right away to take a starting slot. I think just kind of what David was saying there, the good thing for me is he can play in a number of positions. Really appeals that he can obviously and be that utility man, which I think is needed for us. I don't think we've really got many players like that where you can slot them in at different places, and seems to be well thought of over there. I saw a video on Twitter, a New York City fan crying into one of his strips, so he must be well rated by that fan. So hopefully he's good, and the 18-month loan thing, it's a bit strange for me to give somebody for that length, but as you say, David, a 6-month one probably doesn't do any justice. So happy with that, and we'll obviously see it's a long season, isn't it? And even now with the games probably coming thick and fast as we see coming back for next week, we'll probably be needing people to fill in gaps.
Yeah, I just have a feeling that I don't think we're going to see too much on between now and then this season. I don't know what it is, but I think the 18-month loan deal almost gives them a bit of a free, well, not free hit for 6 months, but like, sort of gives them 6 months to bed in, have a pre-season with us, and then I think next season will be when we start getting the benefit of him in the first team. I had a look. I think he's got about 6 or 7 caps for the USA, but I was listening to something they were saying that I think they had 2 tournaments or something over the summer, and they had to split into 2 squads. So I think he was almost in the sort of backup squad or A squad, whatever, however they classified it. So I don't think he's quite in the, first pick for America or that yet, but they're certainly getting stronger. And when you look at some of the young players that have come across with MLS into some even the bigger leagues just now, I think they're really starting to export some good players. So from a personal point of view, I think any impact he has this season, I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I'd be expecting him to kind of kick on for the start of next season after he's been here for a while.
And it's not just the football element of it. He's a young boy leaving America, so he's coming out of Europe. He's got to get himself settled into a new country, which is, can't be underplayed. He's going to have to bed himself in and get used to the culture. And it's not just, as I say, it's not just bedding into a style of football. So that probably is a good idea that he's got this 6-month period to see if he likes it as well. He's going to enjoy working abroad. But I tend to agree with you, David. I think it'll be not so many starting positions, starting places for the next 6 months, but I expect a bit of turnover in the summer. I expect quite a lot of guys to be leaving us in the summer, and I think it will then be a revolution. I think there will be a revolution of the team, and I think Gio will start to put his stamp on it. So it's a good signing to get in now, but I think it's also a long-term plan, a long-term solution. But yeah, and that revolution's already kicked off today because we've already had a few ins and outs. So leaving us today, we've got Jermaine Defoe, and we've also got Stephen Kelly, who has went to Salford City in League 2 in England. So 2 players leaving us there today. And we've also got Cedric Itten, who has came back in. So, as I say, a flurry of activity today, quite a lot of announcements, and you can see, I think we're actually starting to get a squad together, both in and out. Gio's starting to shape it. David, what's your thoughts on the movement today?
Yeah, it's exciting stuff because I think it will give Giovanni. He obviously he's had some time, to have a good look at the players. I think the initial time spent with James Sands will be, an assessment of the player. How quickly could we get him in the team? Is the boy ready? Will he need some time to settle in? How the form of other players, Bakuna, John Lundstrom, so sometimes needs must. And if he performs on the training ground, Gio likes what he sees. He may ended up playing a wee bit quicker than planned. It's really just how he grasps the opportunity. But exciting times, and the 2 young boys out today, Stephen Kelly off to Salford, Leon. So Gio is obviously putting together a squad which he sees we'll see him through this season, get him to the next transfer window. As long as we've got a winning squad, get us to 56, mission accomplished. Hope, and with some money in the bank, which obviously was much required when we lost to the Celtic accountants. But Nathan Patterson for me was a fantastic prospect. Still is a fantastic prospect. But you're right. I mean, was he going to dislodge Tav from that side? No. So you either shoehorn him in somewhere else, and you set up a system to fit him, which I don't think Gio was prepared to do. I think he's just too strong a character for that, to accommodating players just for the sake of it. So yeah, and big Cedric coming back is, I didn't see that one coming, to be honest, because but now that Defoe's moved out, we will need some cover up front, and to be honest, Big Ced he's done it, on occasion when called on. Will he see much game time? I would have to have my doubts, but as long as he's sitting there as cover for our forwards, then he'll be doing a good job. It's so exciting times. I think we should be in a good position with the squad that we have. Obviously, there's probably further business to be doing, in terms of Suter. There's the boy from Vitesse Arnhem. It has been mentioned possibly for the summer, but you know how these things, once you've made the contract offer, the clubs, have got a decision to make as to whether you have a player who's contracted to another club, or you jettison them for whatever fee can be arranged. So I think there will be further developments over the next couple of weeks, no doubt.
I think just on the two strikers, obviously, first, obviously, Itten coming back. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. I don't blame Gio, because I don't think the loan spell was particularly working for Itten over in Germany. So it'll be interesting to see if he fits, because I know Gerrard, probably didn't fancy him too much, although he had some big moments last year. I think he's got a lot to prove still, but certainly having him around, I think it's up to Gio now to have a look at him and see where he fits. But I probably wouldn't be surprised if he maybe has another move this window, Itten, if Gio doesn't fancy him, maybe elsewhere. But I just wanted to give a special shout out for one of my favourite players over the last couple of years, have been Jermaine Defoe. Buzzing when we signed him. Always been a striker that I've admired. Obviously doing in England, then when we got him, I think you're obviously getting him at that age, but I think even the captain today's put something out about the influence that Defoe had in the changing room, not even just on the pitch. And I think his influence last season can't be underestimated. And when you get your captain coming out and saying that, I think it deserves to be recognised. And I think it's probably the right move for Defoe to go on and move forward. But I think he'll be missed, and a special shout out for that goal against Livingston last year was absolute belter, and it was great to see him get a goal against Celtic as well when we hammered them, obviously. So we shout out for him, because as I say, over that 55 season, I think he'll always be a player that will be looked back quite fondly, and good luck to him, obviously, wherever he goes, and hopefully Big Itten can come in and fill in that sort of gap that we've got for that striker. But I'm not sure if Big Fella will be happy with that amount of minutes, because Defoe wasn't getting a lot of game time. So, but good luck to him, and good luck to Big Cedric, obviously coming back.
Yeah, I think on Defoe, don't think he wasn't really going to get much game time this year, and I think the change of management and that, Mackay coming in, I think he was always going to take over the kind of the striker coaching role, or I know he's first team coach, but he's got to have a lot of input with the strikers. I think Defoe was probably just feeling a wee bit edged out, but I mean, I don't think there was anything else behind it. He maybe feels he can offer another 6 months, maybe somewhere in the lower leagues in England, and maybe call it a day then. Loved seeing him getting his league winner medal. I think he deserved that for his career. And again, his statement, I know players don't really put out bad statements when they leave, but I think that was a classy touch as well. And I think we all knew he was a classy guy before he was here. Remember what he'd done with the wee guy, Bradley Lowry at Sunderland when he was there. So I've always had a soft spot from after that. Moving on to Stephen Kelly, who's away, I actually thought he would have went to a higher level than Salford. I suppose, you can only go where clubs are wanting you. But he had a good impact at Ross County last year. And I actually thought he was going to be the one for the younger ones that maybe just edged into the team this year, if Davies was getting phased out a wee bit. But after a kind of positive pre-season and getting some minutes, he's just not featured. So I don't know if he's not showing up well in training or whatever, or we've just got too many options in front of him. But again, I kind of think this is maybe his last. He needs to go down there, make a right impact, and then come back in the summer. I don't think, if he's not breaking at the team next year, I think he probably needs to move on full time for his sake.
I got a bit of a fright. I did get a bit of a fright when I seen that coming through the day that he was leaving, because I've got high hopes for Stephen Kelly. I think he can do a lot in his career, and I think he can do it at Rangers. I really hope he's not going to be one that's pushed out the door. When I say I got a fright, it's just because I seen the headline that Stephen Kelly was leaving. Obviously, once you read the story, he's just going out on loan, so that gives you comfort that, okay, let him go and do another loan spell, and fingers crossed for his benefit that he comes back and is a better player for it. One thing that I did notice is that the picture that he put up on to announce that he was leaving, he looks very slight, so slight. He's such a slight boy. His leg muscles just don't look as if they've developed. So I think he just needs to get a bulk about him. He needs to bulk up or do something anyway, because he looks a wee bit of a light player. But from what we've seen of him, certainly in pre-season and obviously on his loan spells, he looks like a player. He looks to me as if he could make it. He's a really talented guy. So I hope to see him make a great showing of himself and get himself back up the road for the start of pre-season.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes timing is just it's just down to fickle luck. On occasions, maybe it's just that Sands has taken his place in the queue. He's just a wee bit too young to be, first team, to be a serious contender to be a place on the bench who's actually going to have an impact on the game. So I think as football players, he's technically very good, but I think sometimes, in the short run, you can be unlucky in terms of, the other players who are in the squad, the form of individual players. But I think in the longer term, you will get what you deserve. And that will be as true of Stephen Kelly as it is of any player. It may be that Sands, is a couple of years older, a bit stronger, a wee bit more experience, and has just taken his place in the queue. Therefore, to get Stephen Kelly game time, we'll just put him down to Salford, where no doubt, he will feature most days. So sometimes it's just down to timing.
You see, it's actually quite interesting he brought that up about sort of physicality, the 2 years actually, because it's one thing I think Rangers have been really good at in the last couple of years. You look at the difference in Scott Wright since he came in, like he's bulked up. I think we are quite a physically strong team, even for guys that you wouldn't naturally say, like their physical presence is one of the big things. And I've noticed that about Stephen Kelly as well, that he just looks wiry, rather than sort of muscly and powerful. And again, that's a good point for you as well, David. I thought that James Sand looked a pretty big lad for 21-year-old. And as you say, it's maybe just a physical thing. So one thing I would say, I said I was surprised about the level that Kelly went to. At least he's got to a team that should be fighting at the top end of the table in League Two, which I'm always a little bit wary when our players go. I almost sometimes think they should go down a league and fight at the top rather than at the bottom of our own league, because that's not what they're going to experience at Rangers. I think you want to be in a team that's used to winning. But again, just personal preference here.
I'm going to stick up for him as well because he's a local lad to myself, Stephen. So he's actually 22 in April, so I think he's actually older than James Sands by a wee bit. I think he's got a bright future in the game, without a doubt. Hopefully it is, and I think when he comes back into our midfield in the summer, I think there'll be changes in our midfield. We obviously got Ryan Jack out of contract. I can't see Ryan Jack getting a new deal with the injuries. As much as I love Ryan Jack, I can't see that happening. And I'm envisaging, hopefully not in January, but there'll be maybe a movement out for one of our kind of main midfielders potentially if there's a big bid. So I think there'll be a gap opening up for Stephen, and it definitely has got ability. There's no doubt about it. He is slight, without a doubt. But when he's played at times, he's looked the part. And I know that Gerrard had, really fancied him, and obviously kept him involved in his squads. So fingers crossed he goes down there and does well at Salford, because I think there is a role at Rangers for him, but just depends, obviously, if it kicks on when he comes up. But I think there will be openings more so, as you're saying there, David, just opportunities in the summer, I think, as we move forward. Hopefully Gio puts him in there, but we'll see how it goes for him. Wish him all the best.
Aye, fingers crossed. Good luck to you, Stephen, and all the other players that have left us. All the best, and thanks for your service. Any other rumours that you've heard? Any guys that you fancy to come in? I guess one of a couple there that David's mentioned earlier was John Souttar, and there's another boy coming for the Dutch team, Vitesse. I forget his surname, but
Daniel Duca.
I'm glad you tried to pronounce it, because I wasn't going to be able to do that.
Daniel Duca, Vitesse Arnhem's captain.
Yeah.
Was 23. I mean, they're saying that they will not discuss it with anyone unless there's £2 million on the table. So it's just, but the press reports are that Rangers are keen to make him an offer for the summer, where there would be no transfer fee, because he's free to now to sign a contract to join Rangers in the summer. So I don't know whether no one's going to stump up £2 million to sign him for 6 months. So I don't think that's going to happen unless it's the usual brinkmanship. They get your poker face on and do the deal. But what I'm hearing and from today are that John Souttar is possibly almost there in terms of agreeing to come to Ibrox. So that would be a good deal.
One of the things about the Dutch boy is he's got a good pedigree at international level. He's come right through it. He's got caps all the way through the unders. So he's obviously well thought of in the Dutch setup, the international side, international setup, I should say. He's well thought of. Chris, any thoughts on this guy or indeed?
I like the look of this, because I think this is us starting to veer into Gio's markets now, and a different sort of, maybe not a different level, but a different type of signing is what we've been used to, because obviously we know Gerrard's signings were, predominantly from down south, and the sort of contacts he had. So, no, looking forward to it. And I think our backroom staff will obviously be very influential in terms of being able to get guys like him over. So hopefully we can get that going. And the reports for Souttar seem to be kind of leaning towards that he's wanting to come to ourselves. I know that's potentially Blackburn and is it Stoke maybe that's the other option? Right, Sheffield United. I mean, I know we're biased, but for me that's no brainers. But I suppose they might be willing to offer him, immediate game time. They might be wanting to offer him a wee bit more money. I know Blackburn are going for the Premier League, so you just don't know, obviously, about where that's going to go. But I mentioned on the first podcast that I've done with you guys that I'd be quite happy with Souttar, other than the injury worry. But I am relatively happy with those two. But I think Gio will be working hard behind the scenes to see what else he can bring in this window.
Yeah, my only sort of worry about Souttar, I mean, I've not seen him play loads, but the games that I've seen and games that I know other people have been at, I don't think there's any doubt that he can hack it at the level we play at. My concern would be, and I don't know, it seems a bit unfair that you keep going back to this, but his injury record. If we end up, say, losing Goldson in the summer, Goldson is pretty much a 95%, 97% available player. If we lose Goldson in the summer and we end up with Helander, Souttar, and the new guy for Holland, I'm not going to try his name either, you would say there, and we'll say Balogun, see he's number 4, I know he might leave as well, but that's 3 of them who have either had serious injuries in the past or are currently injured in, Highlander's case. And since he's been at us, as much as I like him, we cannot rely on him for 40 games a season like we do with Goldson. I know people have their own thoughts on Goldson, but one thing you can never aim at him is that he's not available pretty much for every game. And if we are talking about getting rid of Goldson and replacing him with Suter, it's not so much the level of the player that would worry me, but as the availability.
That's my fear. It's built into us as Rangers fans. I think I said that as well. But last year I was talking about it, that the amount of injuries that we've had for centre halves, guys that we've bought, and then immediately they've got knee injuries or some sort of problem. That's the concern for me. And even at that, I'm not convinced he's at the level. I know you guys are bigging him up here, but I'm not convinced that he's at the level we need, especially if we're trying to progress. If we're going into a European campaign in the Champions League, I'm not sure he's at that level. He's maybe got room for improvement, and if he gets coached well enough, but it's no one for me. I would actually rather we swerved him, and I know I'll probably be biting my tongue next week when we actually sign him, and I've got him on the back of my jersey. But
when it's a done deal, you back him, isn't it? That I've always thought he was a great player. So, but I kind of harbour some doubts as well about John Suter. So is he going to take us to the next level? Then Champions League football. If 56, you're thinking, well, is that you would have to say no. I mean, if you were to take him, one of the guys. The boy from Vitesse Arnhem's a product of the Ajax Academy. So, technically this boy will have it all. He's captain at 23. You're thinking, that maybe there's some more room for improvement. Gio will obviously be well aware of what this boy could bring. How well does he know John Suter? He'll probably be relying on, maybe others' information. So, but it's like any transfer. There's always that element of risk involved, in terms of injuries. Are they going to step up? Because and you'll have seen it through the years, that when some people who come to Ibrox, the minute they pull that jersey over their head, get on that pitch, they'll have a look around the stand at 50,000 people and think, Jesus Christ almighty, am I going to be able to do this? So some of the guys just can't hack it through, no fault of their own with football ability. It's the ability to handle that pressure as well. So there's a few factors in the makeup of a good Rangers player, and you really don't know for sure until they get there. So there's always a risk.
I think in the best Rangers teams that we've obviously watched, for me, obviously the Walter Smith team, the Dick Advocat team, we've always kind of snapped up the best of the rest in the league, the best sort of Scottish players, and they've, the likes of Kevin Thompson, coming in. I know Nacho Novo was Spanish, but how many people thought he was going to be as good as he done, scoring the penalty to get us to a final? So I think sometimes we can downplay some of the players in our own league. But you think that UEFA Cup final team, Stephen Whittaker in that, the goal he scored in Lisbon, when he signed from Hibs, I don't think many people were jumping for the rooftops, and I think that was amazing. So I think, and for every Stephen Whittaker, there's obviously been a few donkeys, I will admit that, but it's for me, it's if we get him in a contract, I don't think we'll be paying him Goldson wages. So I don't think it will be a massive gamble. But I did get the sort of fears of him maybe not taking us to the next level. But Scottish players have done us a turn in the past before when we bought them from other clubs. So Neil McCann wasn't too bad when he came for Hearts, was he?
No, you're right. It's a good point that we do snap up the best players, and it is a low risk signing, I suppose. Even if we were to pay a small fee in this window, it is a low risk because we're not going to lose much money off them. As long as it's not too long a contract, we're not going to then have too much of an outlay or too much of a commitment. So, let's see how that one goes. It's no for me, but no doubt after we hang up here, it's going to be announced on Twitter. Steve, what's your thoughts on Suter?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add there about, you'd said earlier on about any other ins and outs. I was thinking more about the Lundstrom one. I don't know if you've heard any more on that. He was kind of linked with, I think it was a loan to Middlesbrough, where his ex-Sheffield United manager's in place. But I was actually, had a WhatsApp just before this. One of my mates was saying the Australian boy Celtic were going to sign has done an about turn or something, and he's headed to Middlesbrough. So I don't know if they play in the same position, if that would impact Lundstrom going, or don't know if you've heard anything about that. Or, no?
No, nothing coming through to me, no.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah, that would be the only other, that's the only other sort of in or out that I've heard. I would like us to buy a right winger. Watching the games, I think what Kent offers on the left-hand side, I think we either need something similar on the right. I'm quite a fan of Scott Wright, but I don't think I would like him to be in that position for the remaining games. If we're going for the league, I like him to come in as a sort of backup for right or left. And if we can't find somebody like Kent, I think we need somebody that's a big goal threat on the right wing. I think that's about the only position that I think we really need strength in.
Is that no Cedric Itten, Steve? Would you not put him in there? Is he no I know he's not a tricky winger in the same mould as Kent, but is he not a guy that you would play right wing that could then go and support the forward?
Well, that would be, I think, I know it sounds like we one extreme to the other, but that's what I would like to see. Either somebody like him who is pretty much there just as a goal threat, or somebody like Kent who is there, to put more chances on plate for Alfie, really. I don't know if I kind of said last week a wee bit of sympathy for Itten, because he came in as a striker last year, never really got played as a striker, came on as a sub for 10-15 minutes at the end of games as a right winger, and got judged on how many goals he scored. So I didn't think it really added up for me, but in my heart of hearts there, I think he's going to make it with us and become a kind of top Rangers player. I would say probably I don't, but I still think he deserves a bit of a better chance.
I don't think any of us can make that through assessment until he gets that game time. He looks a player to me. I fancy Itten. I really think he's a good player, and I think he's got a lot to offer, but none of us can make a true assessment of it until we actually get him in the team.
I see he's kind of brought back into the, sorry for interrupting there, he's brought back into the Switzerland squad, I see. So, I mean, Switzerland are a really steady international team. They're always sort of top 15 in the world, aren't they? So, always at World Cup. So, there's obviously something there.
Yeah, well, I would think that it may be that Gio, who will be aware of Cedric Itten and what he could possibly bring to the team, and maybe he sees there's something there that he can work with, bring him back, get him on the training grounds, and with a view that Roy Mackay is there to get these guys up to speed with whatever Gio wants to implement. Then it maybe he just sees he's someone he can work with, someone who's got a bit of potential, adapt to a different system. Because you're right, with Gerrard, it was just kind of in and out, and he was kind of filling in. He'd be in the left, sometimes mostly on the right, and he's got ability, the boy, but he's not Alfredo Morelos, that's for sure. So, and he's never going to win that contest. So maybe there's another slot on the pitch for him where Gio could make the best of him. I'm hoping that they're working on that, in the next wee while. Once Gio gets a close-up look at these guys, he'll be in a much better position.
I think he's obviously touched on it about Switzerland. I think he's been scoring goals for them as well. I think he's done well for Switzerland, and I think they're one of the better nations, if you like. So I think the system that Gio plays might suit him as a striker as well, because he likes his strikers to be strikers. So, if we're playing with actual wingers and getting balls into the box, then the big man's obviously going to be on the end there. And even if we just bring him out and put him up front with Sakala for the Motherwell games, then he'll be sorted, because I think he scored against every game. Like, that was all his goals, wasn't it? It was Motherwell. And you know what? That game, if we think back to last season, I remember watching that game, and it was tight. It was at it, and a big man got us out of hole that day. Motherwell had about 40 men behind the ball, if I remember right. So he can certainly, I think he does well in that low block. I think they took the low block to the extremes that day, but I think he does well in those games. So I'm looking forward to seeing him coming back in. I think he definitely offers some. He's for me, he's nowhere near as good as Alfredo, but he offers something different. And I think if we were to get an injury to Alfredo, hopefully not, but if we were, you're starting to look at that bench and worrying, because I don't think, as much as I again really think Kemar Roof's a great player, I don't think he's brilliant at sort of holding the line and running the line himself, and being that striker. I think he likes to play in the kind of 10 holes sometimes with another striker. So I think under Gio's system, I think he could potentially do well. Big Cedric, I think in fact he's brought Itten back in and having a look at him. I think that sort of tells you that Gio's potentially interested in playing him.
See, just what you're saying there about Roof as well. Touchwood, nothing happens to Morelos, but we want to go into the final run of games with relying on Kemar Roof as the number one striker, because you just know he's going to play 2 or 3 games and then he's out for 2 or 3. And if we're then relying on it, and could be the answer, but we've not got any evidence really to back it up. Just going back to the Motherwell game, actually, that was the game last season that I think I finally made peace that we were going to win the league. I think I was pretty nervous in games up until then. That game, so Itten will always have a place in my heart for that. He made the last few months of the season a bit of a canter and nice and relaxing to watch, I thought.
That was tricky. It was. I remember watching it, and I remember thinking, this, because we've got the scar tissue, haven't we, in the previous season. So you're thinking, this isn't going to happen today, and then obviously a big man popped up with it. So that was a huge moment. It set the scene, I think, for the rest of the season. As you think, we started to believe that it was happening.
Aye, let's hope he bangs in another few and leads us to 56 as well then. Welcome back to Said to Ted. Just moving on to then, that probably rounds us up for the transfer window. I think we've covered everybody that's coming in and who has left. I don't see any other rumours. They are the only 2 big rumours that I've seen that we've covered there, is the 2 guys. So,
well, there's one other. There's one other. Sorry, Swiss pal was Seagrass, the Dundee United goalkeeper. So big Cedric's Swiss colleague. There was rumours that that Rangers might be making him an offer to with a view to bringing him on.
I've not seen that rumour. No.
Seagrass was mentioned as he's a decent goalkeeper. I mean, he's never really played at a top club, but at times we've played against him, I've always thought, the boy looks but he's 29, and clearly his best years are probably still ahead of him. So I don't know whether that would be something that they would be interested in. It might be something that would be just wait until the summer and make a move then.
Every goalie that we play against seems to be brilliant. That's the way it is for me. Every time I see we come up against a goalkeeper, they're brilliant. Then you see them the next week and they're draping balls and throwing balls in the net. Chris, what about you, Seagrass?
Aye, well, I think he was the keeper that had the clean sheet that won us the league that day, wasn't it, for Dundee United, Celtic. So I'd just give him a contract. I'd give him a contract for that, just for a half. He was. I think they always stand out against us. What you said there, Graeme, spot on. Like, says that obviously they do that, but there's I think that there's obviously going to be a need for a keeper potentially next year. But I did see that rumour as well, David, along with the boy at St Johnstone's, Xander Clark as well, potentially. But none of them fill me with great hope as a number 1, to be honest.
Seem like number 2.
Yeah, you're right, and it's back to that question as to whether these guys are an upgrade in what we have. I mean, is Seagrass going to take the replace of John McLaughlin? Well, not for me, but
no.
I'm certainly not an expert. So,
to be honest, if we're looking for an upgrade in what we've got, we're not upgrading in Alan McGregor, are we? I know he's coming to the end, but I think I'd be quite comfortable with McLaughlin taking over as number 1. I can't think of anything that he's done in the games that he's played that fills me with any dread. And I spoke to a good mate that's a Hearts fan when Rangers signed him. He was obviously at Hearts and then went to Sunderland. And he was quite shocked that we'd went for him. He said that he didn't think he would sort of be up to it at Rangers, but I can't think of one instance that, I mean, he's maybe not quite Alan McGregor. McGregor, anything that's heading towards the goal, you think he's got a chance of saving this. And I'm talking about any keepers, that some of the better European keepers that I've seen at Ibrox. I don't think I'd swap McGregor for any of them, but I think this will be his last season.
I think, just talking about McGregor and potential leaving is actually giving me the fear thinking about it, but he's been that good for us. When Gorham left, we replaced him with Stefan Klos, who was unbelievable as well. I don't think he was as good as Gorham, personally. He's still number one for me, Andy Gorham, as much as I love McGregor. But he's just been so good for us, over the two spells. And he's going to be a massive loss. But if we need to really think, who we're going to bring in to replace him, because he is nearing the end, obviously, of the career. But I think we've seen a massive difference in McGregor. The fact that he's consistently getting picked just now, I don't think it was doing us any favours with him and McLaughlin both playing. But I agree, I really like McLaughlin. But I think the fact that we're obviously getting linked with keepers, there's obviously a suggestion that it might be McGregor's last season, but he'll definitely begin doing as an icon, no doubt about that.
Well, I think Alan McGregor's his place in our history is absolutely cemented. I remember when being in the club deck when McGregor came back, and I can't remember, it was a nice sunny day, so it was kind of early season, but I was just sitting there with a big smile on my face thinking, it's good to have a proper keeper again. We've got a proper goalkeeper, because obviously we've been traumatised with the likes of Cammy Bell and Robinson and guys like that who you just watch through your fingers. And then McGregor come back. He made a couple of saves during the game, and it was relief as much as anything. We've got a proper keeper again. This was etched in my mind. The big man is superb. He will be, he will never buy a pint in the Loudon Tavern for the rest of his life. So he's one of our own. I mean, it's as simple as that, isn't it? Alan McGregor. So he's now approaching. I think he's now reached 40. So you're thinking, time will catch up with us all. But certainly in this season, you're thinking, have you? I think there were a couple, making it early doors. To be honest, hand in my heart, I think the Malmo game, McGregor didn't have his best ever game for Rangers, but I mean since then, he's and the big man's so vocal. He's just he's one of us. Gosh, it'll be a sad day but I think we've got a ready-made replacement in John McLaughlin. I really do. So
it would be remiss of me. Colin's not here today, but Andy Firth might also get a shout.
Yeah,
he would be shouting. That's what he would be shouting if he was on the pod today. Andy Firth will be taking over as number one. So I better give him an honourable mention. So how's it been with the football, guys? Has it been a struggle for you watching it? Nothing to watch? The only thing I've been watching is the African Cup of Nations. Don't know if any of you've seen the Nigeria game or any of the games at all. But
I did. I watched a bit of the Nigeria game, but just look. I mean, I saw because Joe Aribo's on the park, and gosh, I'm talking about building up physicality. Georgie's another one who clearly spent some time in the gym, but it seems to be that it's in the rules of the AFCON that the score's 1-0 because maybe they're only allowed to score one goal, and then does the game end at 1-0 or do they actually play 90 minutes? But I did watch Nigeria, and I actually thought Nigeria were quite good. And Sadiq come on in the second half, and he looked every bit as big a diddy as I remember him. But apparently, he's the boys. Either he is a good player or he's just hiding it well. But he was doing that, chasing about. Obviously, they can run like the wind. But I got a wee shudder down my spine when I seen him come off the bench. But they rolled on. They won the game. Egypt, had a couple of chances, couple of flurries, but I thought Nigeria kind of beat them at arm's length. So, and I think that's this top. That's the only game. I was only taken to it because Joe Aribo was on the pitch. So,
I watched I caught the first half of it yesterday. I was at work. I managed to stick it on and watch the first half. Nigeria are quite a strong team. There's a lot of kind of Premiership players in there, and I have to say Aribo was either the best player that I've seen in the first half, or he certainly never looked out of place, and that kind of worries me a wee bit. If he does have a really strong tournament, that if he comes back before the end of the January transfer window, that he might be gone. And if he is, I just hope it wouldn't be too late that we could try and get somebody in to replace him, because I think he'd be a big miss. I don't know if just talking about the other African Cup of Nations, when you were saying there about the game ending 1-0, did you see the referee today that had an absolute shocker? What did he blow up at 85 minutes? restarted the game at 87, blew up again at 89. There's something like 2 sending offs and 9 subs or something in the game. So
They then had to go out 20 minutes later to play the last 5 minutes, and one of the teams didn't turn up. I mean, only in Africa could that happen, really, couldn't it?
yeah.
Wow.
Yes, did you see any of the Nigeria game? What was your thoughts on Aribo?
I watched it just purely for Joe, obviously trying to see how he got on, and I was interested because he played in a kind of 2 in midfield with Ndidi, who's not a bad player for Leicester, and he actually stood out over Ndidi. He looked better than him. He did not look out of place on that park, and he actually, for me, was probably the better player in the Nigeria team, and I don't think they actually needed to do very much to win that game. I was laughing at what was going through Salah's head, obviously changing for the Liverpool team to that Egypt team, but I was happy for him, and I was saying that yesterday to my brother. I'm torn between wanting Aribo to have a great tournament and do well, because obviously we love Joe Aribo and you want a boy to do good for his country, and them getting hammered and getting sent to him early so we can get him back in the games. But it just kind of dawned on me the day that we're actually, as much as you're reminiscing and wanting him to have a good tournament, he's actually not going to be available for this Aberdeen game and the other games that are going to be coming. So we will miss him, no doubt about it. But I hope the boy's a good tournament, and I hope he does himself justice, because he's a cracking football player. He's unbelievable football player to watch. Touched on it on our last podcast, but his goal away to Hearts was just unbelievable. For me, Joe Aribo's the best player at the minute in Scotland. And I know we've got probably the second best player in Ryan Kent when he's on form, but I just think Joe Aribo's so good. And I think Nigeria could go far in a tournament. Not great for probably Rangers overall, but I think we need to enjoy Aribo while we can. Is my thing. I think he'll be one of the next ones to go. And I said in the first podcast that I done, just now. Just give 56 and then, go with our kind of best wishes. But it's not been a great standard in the old AFCON, I don't think. I think today obviously summed it up with the referee. I think they went for a water break and he forgot to turn his clock off. And he thought it was obviously 90 odd minutes. But it is what it is. As long as he's Aribo's all right and has a good tournament and get him home safely.
I think they've expanded it this year to more teams. So I think it's allowed a lower level of team to qualify, kind of like letting Scotland qualify for the Euros in the summer there. It's letting the Dross get into the tournament. But I thought Nigeria were very impressive. They just pinned they pinned Egypt in. I thought they played really well. And Aribo showed up, as you've all said. I thought Aribo showed up very well.
I was having a look actually during the week about what games he would miss. Their group games are going for, I think, the 11th and 19th. So if they got knocked out in the groups, he would only really miss Aberdeen and probably Stirling Albion, which is on the 21st. I think we all expect them. I think it's back to this crazy thing that happened in the Euros, that the top 2 get through and then most of the third place teams get through or something like that. It's harder to get knocked out of these tournaments, isn't it? Although Scotland managed it, I suppose. But and then I think they would pretty much have to get to the final for them not to be back for the Celtic game. Is that right? Or maybe the semi-final.
It does take us on to then the fixtures. So let's have a wee look at what we've got coming up, because it's been a while since we've been able to look at a fixture list and say, we've got a game coming up shortly. So as you said, we've got Aberdeen coming up. Away to Aberdeen. So these are just the January fixtures. Away to Aberdeen, home to Stirling Albion, home to Livingston, and then away to Ross County. So looking at that, I would be hoping for 9 points and progression in the Cup. Anybody get anything to worry about? Is Aberdeen a problem for us? I'll come to you first, Steve. Anything of concern?
I'd have to say with our cup record in the last few years, Stirling's probably the biggest concern, to be honest. Obviously joking. I think if we can beat Aberdeen on the 18th, I think that actually doesn't look as bad a January as I had in my head for some reason. Obviously, I know the Celtic game's been moved, but I thought we had a really, really tricky January. We all know what Aberdeen's going to be, don't we? they've not been in the stadium, the same as everybody else. Biggest game of the season. They might even half fill their stadium. Who knows? They might turn it in numbers. But no, I think if we can beat Aberdeen, you would expect us to have 9 points for the rest of the month, and it obviously puts us into the start of February in a good position.
Chris, what about yourself?
I think, obviously Aberdeen away is one of the kind of trickier fixtures usually because they're up for it, they give everything. I'd imagine that's not going to change given some of their signings in the summer. Obviously welcoming is up there. But I fancy us to go up there. I think under Gio we've been very controlled in the way that we've played. I don't think we'll get caught up in any emotion in the game. I think we'll just play it. We'll be cold and calculated. I fancy us to go up there and get the result that we need. Similar to yourself, I'd be disappointed to not have 9 points and go into that game against them in high spirits. So I think that the cup obviously gives the opportunity to maybe play other players as well potentially, and a cup for Gio is going to be massive. The record under Gerrard, as much as it was great to win 55, but the cup record was abysmal. So looking forward to January and the fixtures. Looking forward to, obviously touched on it at the start, but looking forward to just getting back to the games with my boy and my mates and everything, getting back and watching Rangers. It's what it's all about, isn't it?
I think everybody's missing it. Everybody truly is missing it, and it's a bit of a shambles how it's came about in the first place, and then we're now having to do tests and passports to get into grounds and stuff. It really is ridiculous, and we said this at the end of last season, or when we had to curtail our season. There's no logic to why it's happening. There doesn't seem to be any facts or any science behind. Right, we're going to stop it for 3 weeks, and then we're going to let everybody in. 50,000 just can all go to the football on Monday. But then I can see Partick Thistle are raising a complaint to say, well, how is that allowed? How can they get 50,000 in on a Monday, but we can't get 3,000 in on a Saturday? It's so frustrating, and it affects so many people. So hopefully that's the end of it. Hopefully we can draw a line under it, and that is the end of it. We're now over the worst of it. But yeah, I think everybody else just really looking forward to getting back into the stadiums, back in to see Rangers. But I can't wait. The only thing I would say about the fixture list is it's now, because of that, we're now going to have a big squad because we've got games so close together. 18th, 21st, 26th, 29th of January, and then the 2nd of February. So we've got 5 games right in between one another.
Yeah.
So when I was saying, do we have any concerns? I guess we don't have any concerns about the opposition. Maybe I don't see any concerns about the opposition, but maybe just managing our squad will be what we need to overcome. David, how are you going to be getting back?
The fixtures continue apace, because after we play them in the 2nd, we've got Hearts in the 6th, Hibs in the 9th, Dortmund, and then in the 17th. So I mean, it's going to be you're going to be calling on whatever squad you've got, to run through these fixtures. So it's going to be 2 a week. So I think there are not many slots available. And one of the concerns I would have is that if we're going to insist on checking 50% of the home crowd, for COVID passports, you're going to have to get there about 1:30, because that's just insanity. How this is all going to be done. Or we're just going to pay it lip service, and you flash a phone at the steward who sees a QR code on your screen and you walk past. Because if you're going to do it properly with 50% of the people, that is just that's nuts, absolutely insane. Because it would take for 25,000 people to have, to check them properly. It would take hours. We're kidding ourselves on. It's la la land stuff. But the government just seems to have ticked a box by saying, "Oh well, we're pretending that we're kind of controlling this." So if they're pretending they're controlling it, then we'll pretend that we're checking the COVID passports. It's we're kidding each other on here. So
fixing of it just isn't practical, is it? There's no practical way of policing it. So it's going to fall away. It has to. There's no way it can continue. And I know you're saying there about the fixtures there, David, but just to say as well, that also gets worse because once we get by Stirling Albion, we've got another Scottish Cup tie.
Yeah.
And then obviously once we beat Borussia Dortmund home and away, we're going to have another round of fixtures, which I'm sure we all agree is going to happen.
Obviously, I mean, who? Borussia who? Dortmund, what? Is Haaland still there? He left yet? I think it's going to be, I'm looking forward to that. You know, it's a big game. We've been we've had a few, I would say, decent ties over the sort of Gerrard European run. I mean, I know I was negative there about Gerrard's domestic cup run, but in Europe, unbelievable to get us back to where we rightfully should have been, and probably still not yet. Hopefully, get that next year. But I think Dortmund's going to be unreal. You never know. Do you know what I mean? You just never know. I think we would need a bit of luck, obviously, to do them both legs. But I'm confident. You know, confident under Ibrox. I just hope. I know it's not going to happen because Germany's just really restricted just now. But I just hope that the Rangers fans can get a travel over there and a kind of a trip over to Germany, but I think that's maybe asking a bit too much. I think just in touching on the fixtures, I think I was watching Aston Villa v Man United in the Cup the other day, and Gerrard was asked why you're playing a strong team, and he says we only play one game a week between now and the end of the season. We're not in Europe, and it kind of got me thinking, we actually do play a lot of mad games up here. We're constantly playing football, and I think he's obviously been down there and thought, why do we need to rest players in the cup? We're only playing once a week, so he's obviously took that down with him and that mentality. It was just an interesting comment because I think he was actually reflecting on how busy our schedule is usually and the players that he's got at his disposal. So I think it's going to be busy, and we've got no room for error, now that they've made that quite clear. So hopefully we can avoid any kind of COVID cases and COVID issues and just kind of move forward and fulfil the fixtures. Hopefully there's no more daft political moves to get things postponed and moved because we've just not got any room for that anymore.
My only kind of concern with the fixtures would be any COVID outbreaks, because I actually think our squad do well when we're playing games constantly. I thought last year, we played our best football when we were still in the Europa League group stages, and the players just seem to go from one to the other. I think we've got quite a robust squad. Again, hope that doesn't come back to bite me in the arse. And I think this wee break in the middle with the 3 weeks has got the new management team and coaches and the players. Gio, I think, played something like 9 games in his first 33 or 34 days or something like that. So add in travelling to games, European games. He has had pretty much zero time on the training ground with the team. He's now had, I think he gave them a week off, now got to have 2 weeks of training, get some more of his ideas across. And then, as I said, I think straight into games, and I think we play our best football when we're playing a lot of games.
I think you're right, Steve, because I think the time on the training ground is going to be invaluable for us to see what Giovanni really wants from this squad, because he's going to put a stamp on it. He's not had the chance to do that just for the reason you've listed, is that it's been 2 games a week. We're going from rest time, training, game, rest, and been in that cycle up until now. So they've been back since the 5th. You're hoping that, Howie, that they've been spending some time and looking at how he wants to tweak the side for his particular requirements. How's it going to change? And hopefully you'll have done that. There'll be different players, and you're thinking, this is time we should see. Hopefully, and it begins on Tuesday at Aberdeen, because they're going to come out that tunnel breathing fire as they always do. As long as the Rangers players are match that commitment, then the superior ability should see us through that game. It's Aberdeen. I mean, their season so far, you're thinking, why do we worry so much about going up there? Because it's the results just don't actually match the expectation, because they're not that good a side. They're conceding goals. I think their goal difference is +1. They're eminently doable. So unless we have a real bad day at the office, we show up, we'll do Aberdeen.
The only thing that's in my head, and I don't know if this is scar tissue from previous winter breaks, but it's the winter break and that kind of, just when you were touching on that there, Steve, I agree. I think we play our best football when we're constantly playing football. I don't know what the players think of that, but certainly it feels like that watching it. That when we're continually playing games, it looks to be a well-oiled machine. But the winter breaks obviously threw a few spanners in the work. Obviously, we've not went anywhere hot, and I saw Gio talking about that in a Dutch interview. It would have been nice to take them away, and I was like, I don't want to read the next paragraph. Don't be taking them. So he obviously would never. So it'll be interesting to see if he can have a better return from the winter breaks than Gerrard did, because that was, I remember the Joe Worrell game at Kilmarnock, and you're thinking we'd just beaten Celtic, Ryan Jack, and you're thinking, let's go now, let's kick on and do this, and it just was a disaster when we returned back. Also remember Stranraer in the Cup being a really leggy game, similar to the fixture that we've got coming up. So hopefully we can see a difference there, but that'll be something that I would imagine Gio will be well aware of. And the players certainly will be well aware of that. So fingers crossed, as you say, David, that we can come back with a result against Aberdeen on Tuesday and just bounce on.
Looking into it, let's look at the positives. We are going into it top of the league. We're going into it as a formed side, and that's evidenced by the awards that were dished out today. We get the Manager of the Month for Giovanni van Bronckhorst. So that was a fitting reward, straight in the door, already Manager of the Month. And also Alfie, Player of the Month, who's looking great the last few months. I know we've not played for a few weeks, but has been looking good. So we as Rangers are going into this looking like the best team and ready to kick on. So you're right, Chris. It's just scar tissue. Stop worrying. We're going to be fine. We're going to blow these teams away, no problem.
I hope you're right. Do you know what surprised me about the arrival of Van Bronckhorst? And this is just my impression. I don't have much evidence for all this, but he seems quite a disciplinarian in terms of, in managing the squad's time. He seems, run a very tight ship, which, I'm delighted about. I think it's hankers after kind of Jock Wallace thing, So I think he has high expectations of him, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly. So, which I'm quite excited to see. And apparently, from what the McLeish reported in the paper, was that the guys absolutely love his training. He says it's imaginative, it's intensive, and they're loving it so far. So,
what you expect, though, David? He's a student of Dick Advocaat, who was a disciplinarian. He ran a tight ship, so you'd only expect that. And then he's went on to play for Arsenal and Barcelona. He's been coached in the right way, coached by the Dutch national team. There's no way you're going to be getting in there and playing ping pong the way Alan McCoist did them doing it.
He's mentored by Pep as well, and I think Pep, as much as he comes across as the kind of cool guy in the touchline with the Stone Island jumpers and that on, I think behind the scenes he takes no shite for nobody, and I think he's pretty ruthless. So Gio was doing obviously mentoring him. So I think it's pretty clear to see that he's got that bit of an iron fist ruling in the changing room, which it's obviously worked well with players. The players have responded. He's got Manager of the Month, and it's also no surprise to me to see Morelos getting Player of the Month, because he's been unbelievable and a different player, totally under Gio. He put up a wee video on Instagram the other day, yesterday maybe, and he looks lean and fit. It's always a worry when you see Alfredo return back from Christmas and see how he's going to get on. I think he overindulges the old Christmas puddings usually, but he was looking sharp, and I think that again probably testament to Gio and what he's expecting from him. And if I said this previously, but if we can get Alfredo Morelos kicking the ball the best way possible over the next 2 months, the league's in the bag for me. It's absolutely in the bag.
I think that's a cracking point, Chris, because I think a firing Morelos is going to take us 50% of the way there in it, because just feed this boy the ball and he will score. So and if Gio elects to go with two wingers, Kent out left, maybe a new one or a Sakala on the right, get the ball to Alfredo. I don't want to say it, we'll get ahead of ourselves here, but I think we would take some stopping. We would take
see, when we just go back to the Van Bronckhorst thing, there's a reason that promising young players go for Feyenoord to Rangers to Arsenal to Barcelona, and there's a reason promising young players go for like Hibs to Rangers on loan to Peterborough and whatever. And it's really because the likes of Van Bronckhorst don't turn up at training and piss about, you know what I mean? They've all got talent, and I think he's just brought that into being a manager. I think it is a pretty, a Dutch thing. I think when Dutch people sort of have problems at clubs, it's because they come across arrogant and stuff. It's very rarely because they just go and want to piss about with their mates and go and hit the drink and that. So I'm not surprised that he's came in, and I think it's maybe just a different voice for the players. I don't think there was anything wrong with the professionalism under Gerrard. And just touching on that with Morelos, I think that Roy Mackay has. Why would you not want to learn from him? You know what I mean? He was a tremendous striker, and I think the whole being able to speak the same language, I think that has probably helped Morelos. And that Instagram video, he's obviously not had the same diet as me over Christmas. 2 selection boxes a day.
Yeah, because it's both Roy Mackay, which I knew Giovanni would have spoken Spanish, being at Barcelona, but Roy Mackay also speaks Spanish. Mm-hmm. So
and Defoe.
Yeah, so that's that'll be invaluable and Morelos looks just in the last few games. So I'm getting quite excited because the Buffalo will fire us to 56 if we keep him fit and keep him supplied with the ball and keep him fit.
It sounds as though we're all predicting a hat-trick for Morelos against Aberdeen. Would that be fair?
He's lethal up there.
Predictions, Chris. You'll kick us off. What's your score prediction for Aberdeen?
2-0. I think it'll be a sort of calm job. Morelos getting us the first and a penalty for a second just to wind everybody up. A dubious one, even better. A dive for Morelos, please. I think we'll go up there, and I think it will be. I think we'll take the noise out of the game quite early. I think we'll take the noise out of the Aberdeen players quite early. I think we'll just gut them their thing and get the result. So for me, against Aberdeen, 2-0 Rangers.
David, predictions, please.
Right. I'm going all in here. I'm going 3-0. So I think if we get an early goal, I think it could be as many as we want, because in the matches in December we've played well, and created chances, but our scoring rate doesn't really match the number of chances created. So I'm hoping that the couple of weeks in the training grounds will have sorted that to some extent, and we can blow these guys away.
Yeah. Steve, prediction, please.
So if you went through my betting history at Bet365, you'd realise my predictions are horrendous. So I kind of want to call a double bluff and say Aberdeen to beat us 5-0. But if I actually look at the two teams, I think it'll be tough. I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers.
That's what I had as well, Steve.
Don't put any money on that, okay? Because it'll not come in.
I've got the same betting record as you then, because I'm pretty hopeless at it. Do it every week, but it's a donation to the bookies every week. But I think we'll get a victory. I think we'll score a couple of goals, and I'm going to go with 2-1 as well. We're nearly there, guys. We're nearly there. The game's nearly here. Just hang on in there. Guys, we're going to wrap up for the week. That was a nice discussion about the Rangers. And as I said, we're nearly at the Rangers game. We're nearly back to seeing the boys in blue. Thanks very much for joining us, Steve, Chris, David. It's been a pleasure to speak to you tonight. Listeners, please get in touch if you've got any comments on tonight's episode. We'd love to hear from you. Get in touch through the usual methods, whether that be Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or other social media things you all do. Please get in touch with us and please let us know your feedback. Thanks very much, guys. We are the people.